self-care wasn't something that was important to me because I wasn't paying attention to myself. So I didn't know that I needed care.
Yeah.
Like I was too busy paying attention to everything else. So, my mom, people around me would tell me things, but again, I'm paying attention to everything else. I'm not paying attention to myself. So I'm just like, I'm fine. I don't need therapy. Question is, are you ready?
Yes, baby.
Are you ready? We live?
Uh-huh.
We live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Geeks Podcast. I'm your host, Kieran Smith. And I'm here today with my lovely co-host, my wifey. Shout out to wifey behind the camera. Guys, we're back. Episode 9. We are doing self-care in action. So the last pod, we talked about what? Self-care. That was pretty much part 1.
Yeah.
Because I think we focused on the historical, our historical view of what self-care has been to us in our life. But, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, we will be in the month of May doing nothing but mental health, mental wellness, mental illness, self-care, topics like that. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we will be focused on that the whole entire month of May. So that is a quick disclaimer. As long as you come to this podcast in the month of May, this is what you'll get.
Yeah.
Because this is what is near and dear to my heart, my wife's heart. We work with a lot of people in our community that struggle and or deal with mental health or illness in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah, this is important to us. So, whole month of May, we're killing it. Shout out to Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited. I wanted to do this last year, but it's just, it was like impossible.
I know. It's all in the timing. Right now is the perfect
Yeah, it was
time.
out of season for sure.
Yeah.
Says the wise woman.
Thank you.
All right, so self-care in action, right? I promise I'm guilty for saying this in the sermon, right? I know I have. I'll say something to the effect of, I don't want you to just hear what I'm saying today. I want to give you something tangible. I'm guilty. I'm guilty of saying it. So that's kind of what self-care in action is going to be like today, guys. So let's take a look at the definition of self-care. So self-care, the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. The practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness in particular times during stress. So I thought that we're aware of the definition of self-care. Here's what I thought was interesting. The practice of taking action. So we talked about this a couple of times. It's intentional.
It is. It's very intentional. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, the practice of taking an active role in protecting. I thought the verbiage, the play on words was very interesting because protecting one's own well-being. So as if it's saying it as if you don't do this, no one else will, right? That doesn't mean that someone else, like your spouse or your children or your pastor doesn't love you, but it's basically saying like, protect your own well-being and happiness, right? Taking an active role. So this is some strong play on words they're using here. This is intentional.
And it seems like you have to hold yourself accountable.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
It's not something that, is to be worked in the schedule if it can be, right?
Yeah.
This is something that should be, it says a practice, right? So habitual, right? Something you constantly do. You do over and over again. This is how serious self-care is. And one thing I know we don't pay attention to, I know I'm guilty of it, is how important it can be, especially when there's been a deficit of it and now you begin to get stressed out. because you can basically say I'm just going to say you're in dangerous territory when that happens.
Yeah.
I've been in dangerous territory when I've allowed that to happen, not being intentional with self-care, Sabbath, resting, things like that. That stuff over time, if you're not careful, it can become a habit of not practicing it.
Yeah.
And then when things kind of turn upside down, you're in dangerous territory. Like it's going to be hard to recover at that point, if you can at all, if it's something that you just haven't been doing.
Yeah. You lose all interest in things you used to enjoy. That's why you say it's dangerous territories.
Yeah, it's ugly because that's the best definition I have for it. Just because I know how bad it could be to have that deficit. Like I know life gets busy, guys. Like we all get busy. Whether we're working a full-time job or we're our own boss or we're a CEO, like life happens, but self-care, taking care of yourself, your own well-being, your own mental health, like this is something that is extremely important. And really, I don't want to make it sound so cliche, because you hear a lot of people say like, oh, mental health is important, but it's like, coming from me, like from someone who for long periods in my life never even practiced this, never even took interest in it. And then when I finally began to do the hard work in therapy, right? And in church and some of the communities I was in, it's like when I realized how important it was, I almost felt, I don't know, it was strong feelings, right?
Yeah.
Like strong feelings. You could feel like you've been robbed, you've been lied to.
Oh, yeah.
You haven't been taking care of yourself. It was a mixture of emotions, that I felt when self-care really started to make sense to me. And it also made sense why I was so high strung, for so many years in my life. So, practice, intentional.
Yeah.
What you got, babe?
No, I was just going to say, in the studying that I've done, they do say a lot of people, statistic-wise, feel like they've been robbed, like when it comes to time. Especially like when they have that realization, that they haven't been doing it, but then they start doing it. And that can also cause them, that regret of not doing it earlier can also cause them to basically, like you said earlier, stop doing those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Relapsing the consistency, which is important.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's a lot of trauma behind that, or should I say the lack thereof, right? So we're talking about self-care in action. So I thought that there was something in the article from, I believe it was the Mayo Clinic maybe, that we read, and it talked about 10 easy ways to practice self-care without spending money. Now, this stood out to me mainly because the first pod we did on this, self-care, and we talked about our historical views of what self-care was. I think that's why this automatically stood out to me, because we kind of identified in the last episode that historically in our lives, self-care to our loved ones or people we knew has always looked like them pampering themselves, going on trips, spending money, buying things, right? Like that was the version or the definition of self-care we kind of both came up with. So 10 ways to do it without money. I was like, oh, I got to take a look at this. What I found most interesting when I looked over this list, I was like, is this even a real list? So I'm going to read it. You'll see why I say that. We're going to go over this. Get a good night's sleep. Drink lots of water. Go for a brisk walk. Take a relaxing bath. Say no to something you don't want to do. Listen to your favorite music. Watch your favorite film. Make something healthy yet delicious for dinner. Make a list of 5 or more things you like about yourself. And spend time with loved ones.
That's interesting. That like debunks all the excuses that people can give because they can't actually, afford self-care. Going back to finances.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oops.
Uh-huh.
Even when you hate patient, you just gotta do it.
Not to mention that the reason, like, I was not trying to downplay this list in any way, shape, or form. I thought this was a fabulous list. I was just thinking in my head, why do these sound like 10 things we should be doing every day?
Yeah.
That was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, they really have to remind us to do this stuff?
Absolutely.
I'm like, okay, we might be the last 3 generations. We literally might be the generations that are consumed with the most busyness in history. The fact that people have to tell us to get a good night's sleep. Really. You don't have to tell my mom to get a good night's sleep.
Absolutely.
It could be 7 o'clock. She'll be like, I'm going to bed.
Yep.
Like, she'll be like, good night.
Yep.
I mean, wow. Drink lots of water.
Yeah.
But we're going to get deeper into this, like, as the weeks go on, because people really don't. And guys, I'm guilty of this too. I swear I am. I've had to do a lot of work to get better in this area over the years. But I mean, people really downplay what simple things do for their body and for their life. I mean, I've had to say this to people over and over again when I know people that their favorite thing to drink is soda or constantly, I don't know, high fructose or sugar drinks. And I'm just kind of like, your body is 70% water, not Gatorade, right?
You said that to me.
Like, I've had to tell, and it's not even my wife, because Gatorade, okay, like, you can water that down and it's a little bit better. But I mean, like, Mountain Dew and soda and, Red Bull. I'm just like, okay. We have to reevaluate this situation. Your body is not 70% crap. It's water. Drink lots of water. It's kind of like, man, that's so simple. And it's like, yeah, duh, but I don't like water. Does seltzer water count? Does fruit water count? It's like, dude, drink a bottle of water. Like, it's like, just drink 3 bottles of water. Like, you're not going to die. I mean, it tastes a lot better when it's real cold, but I've disciplined myself enough. You hate when I do this. Yeah. That I'll just open a bottle of water on the counter and start drinking it.
You will.
You're just like, babe, that's gross.
It is gross. And, we've become, like, in America, food's a big thing. So, like, taste is, like, pleasure when it's great. So it's hard for us to sit there and discipline ourselves to drink something that has no flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's safe to say that we're palate spoiled.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's like, it just has to be good on that palate. Mm-hmm. I mean, go for a brisk walk.
So simple.
Yeah, but I mean, we've done this plenty of times with the dog. Walking before bed is, fantastic. Yeah, it's fantastic. Seriously, like, it's not the same thing as like pumping weights in the gym.
Yeah.
But it could be. It could work just as good.
And don't include walking to the car being your walk.
Walking to the car. Unless you parked your car 2 blocks down, and it better be New York blocks.
Yes.
It can't be like blocks in Puerto Rico, because the streets are small in Puerto Rico. So it's like a block is like the size of this rug.
Oh my.
Yeah, that can't count. Like, that's why it's like, it better be a New York block. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. 2 New York blocks, then you can walk to your car, and that might be some exercise. Yeah, but not from your front door to your driveway. No.
I'm sorry. People can be lazy with things sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, take a relaxing bath, which, I didn't even want to like make fun of this, because honestly, like, the way especially the last 3 generations, but like, showers are just like normal for us now. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like baths are for kids.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that think like that. Mm-hmm. Now, let me tell you the thing that's crazy. And we've done this before. We've done this research. Mm-hmm. Like, it says it. If you just get in the shower and you don't start like washing up and stuff, but if you just stand under the hot water for 10 to 15 minutes, it can lower your blood pressure.
Yep, I remember.
It can relax your body. It can drop your heart rate.
Yeah.
Like, these are all safe levels and things that happen. But I mean, like, you wouldn't even think just standing in hot water would have that effect, because we don't take the time to just stand still for a minute. It's like you get in the shower and you like,
I gotta hurry up.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's like you don't even like just get in the shower, like just stand there for a minute. You know what I mean? That, I think that's why baths are so unpopular, because they take time.
They do take time, but you know what? They actually really help. They really do. They're relaxing, and you know, it's crazy the little things going over this list, because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, it sounds pretty familiar to my ears, but then I'm like, yeah, but I don't think, you know, people think of, like, the health effects are so simple. The things that you got, people are going to the store spending like $75 on all these vitamins and stuff, when they could just, and spend that last bit of money, when they could just do these simple things.
Go for a brisk walk and take a bath.
Yeah.
A longer one.
Water.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Man, this took me back a lot. Because I love, after we did that research a couple years ago, I love getting in the shower and it's like the water's real hot. You always say I like the water too hot anyway.
Burn your skin off.
But I love getting in the shower and the water's really hot and just like standing under it. Like, out now, you know, I've been doing it for a couple years now, but now I'll like time myself. Like, I won't even move for like the first 10 or 15 minutes because I just want my body just to relax under the hot water. But it wasn't always like that, you know. So a lot of this is a lot of intentional time, you know, and learning and gathering information. Look at this. Say no to something you don't want to do.
That actually sounds really relieving for some people, because there's some, speaking for myself, there's some yes mans and yes women's that always say yes, people pleasers.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
but how does that okay, so saying no, how is that a form of self-care?
I'm not disagreeing with you, because being a yes man or a yes woman can most certainly be dangerous, especially if you are unfamiliar with what boundaries look like.
Yeah. Okay.
But saying no to something you don't want to do, not only is it a powerful thing, especially for maybe a person who has, now I'm talking a little bit from like a pastoral role. So maybe I'm talking with a person and I know they have trauma lingering in their background. Saying no to something might be a lot harder for this type of person, because they could feel like, and this won't make sense to everybody, and I'm not saying everyone's like this, but specifically a person that has trauma in their background, them saying no to something can instantly make them feel unsafe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Them saying no to something can instantly make them feel like they're in trouble or they've done something bad. They can go on a guilt trip. So, you know, I think that's why this is on this list, because that's actually harder to do than what a lot of us lead on. Some of us are stronger than others in this area, but then we still have certain people that if they ask, it's a lot harder for us to say no.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think that this is a practice that we should be very intentional about. I got better with this in therapy, learning about boundaries.
Still working on it.
Yeah, you know, and it's okay. A lot of people, as long as we work on it, you know, you can't get better at it if you don't put some work into it, right? Some effort. And that's really what it started with me. You know, it was practice, you know, because I had to start with little stuff at first. And like, what was the first step for me? Like, okay, I'm leaving work early. Right? I'm leaving work early. I'm leaving work early. I'm leaving work. Like, it's like I was literally like fighting with myself every day, but I literally had to start putting things in. And I couldn't just say I was leaving work. Like, I had to set myself up to leave work early, because I would say I'm leaving work early. And like every day I was coming, you're like, babe, you said this every day this week and you came home late, right? Yeah. So I had to start doing things. I had to really like stop, take a step back and think about, okay, what am I doing around the time, like an hour and a half to 2 hours before I'm about to go, that's stopping me, you know, from leaving work early or on time. And really what it was is me starting certain projects.
Once you start something,
exactly, right? Yeah, so this is also so some self-awareness has to be present, right? Because I am the type of person that when I start something, I would really like to finish it. So I've learned, right, over the years that it's just best if I don't start it. Like I'll just do it. I'll just start it and finish it tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, and then I get to leave work on time.
Yeah, that's
Most
why
days now.
you're getting a lot better though. I'll give you
Yes.
that because it was every day at one point. But now, since you've practiced doing that, what has that done for you with self care, leaving work early?
So that's like saying no to something I don't want to do because I don't want to stay late at work every day. I can tell you one thing. There's definitely some peace there. Mainly because you really have to take into consideration how many hours you have in a day. And 14 hours, 12 hours at work, 15, 16 hours at work, it's just not healthy. It's not, especially if it's a continuous ongoing thing. I'm not saying this can't happen to somebody once or twice a month. Absolutely. But if this is happening like 4 times or 7 times in a 2-week span, you don't have any boundaries.
Yeah.
You don't. And you probably value work more than you should. I didn't say you shouldn't value it. You should value your job. But it's probably in the wrong place in your life. It's probably number 1, I would guess, if someone's spending that much time at work. I mean, just before we get off this real quick, make a list of 5 or more things you like about yourself. Let's talk about that.
That's beautiful self care right there.
Right? Because some people I know can't list 1.
Self-esteem building. No, they can't. When people used to ask me that question before I got healthy, I would be blank, speechless, and they would have to guide me into figuring it out.
Yeah. I remember a couple of times in the very beginning of therapy, my therapist would go over things like this with me, and I would hate it. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't even want to think about this. So specifically, like, we talk about all racist backgrounds on this podcast. We are not just one, right? Because you and I ain't even just one color.
Right.
So we can't do that. But specifically, let's talk about an elephant in a mental health room, right? So watch this. This again is from, I believe this was I'll check which one it was.
Maybe you could put it in the description.
No, I might have it up. I might still have it up. I can check real quick.
Oh yeah, your order with
I keep it up. We had the Circle Health Group. So that's where we were at. I think that's in the UK. But look at this statistic that they put out there for us. So, Black people are far less likely to seek care. Statistics tells us that about 25% of African Americans seek mental health treatment compared to 40% of white Americans, right? So Black Americans are less likely to seek mental health care. That's what this is about. And they're saying that Black people are far less likely to seek this type of health care. Statistically speaking, Black people actually do this about 25% seek mental health treatment compared to 40% of white Americans, right? Almost double, not quite, but almost.
Close enough.
Unequal access to health care is one major contributor to this disparity. Yeah, we would know that. Nearly 10% of Black people in the U.S. do not have health insurance, compared to only 5.2% of non-Hispanic white people. So, almost a double statistic again. There are so many stigmas in the Black and brown community about therapy and in other backgrounds as well. And I'll be hitting on that more this month, like touching on mental health and awareness based on ethnic group and race. We did this last year, but it was really, I want to say it was around the time me and Demetrius were touching on it, but I think I was more on the mental health side of things when we were doing it. I would have to go back and look. And no, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. And neither is my wife. Even though my wife did go to medical school, it was not for therapy or to be a psychiatrist. We are strictly speaking from our own. These are our takes on, you know, how we deal with these things, our experiences, the things we've been through, the things we see on a day-to-day basis in churches, dealing with community and family and friends, and at work. So we are by no means health professionals. I have gotten a chance to counsel people. I kind of do that on a daily basis. I've also spiritually counseled people. This is really under the, you know, under the church where I'm doing this at. It's not necessarily a practice or, you know, a hospital of some sort. So it really is just us kind of coming forward with our experiences in the generation that we're in, a little bit ahead of us with the generation right underneath us. And we kind of just want to talk to those people and the people who are interested in, you know, mental health and awareness. This is something that's been very important to me and my wife over the years. I've spent some years in therapy. Not a whole lot, because I'm just not that old, y'all, if I'm honest. Like, I'm getting up there, but there's like, I don't think I've really been alive long enough to do that. But I've had times in my life when I was in and out of therapy. Some of it was against my will. A lot of that was when I was younger. And most of it, as I've gotten older, was voluntary. Just work that I personally got to a point and just wanted to do. So, yeah, this is what we'll be talking about the month of May. So this is self-care in action. Babe, you have 3 questions that we could go through real quick, you said?
Oh, yeah. We got 3 questions emailed to us, love. So the first question is, does our lack of self-care really affect other people?
Email. Nice email question. Okay. Does our lack of self-care
really affect other people?
Yeah, I would say absolutely it does. Let's see, what's a quick example of how this can affect other people? When you're at a deficit with your self-care, you are a worse everything. So if you're not taking care of yourself, especially from a self-care perspective, you're, at least this is what I've seen in most cases, way more irritable, snappy, right? It's way easier to flip out on people. It seems like the level of you complaining is higher.
Oh, yeah.
You don't like anybody. You're not a good friend. You know, because when someone's trying to explain something to you, because you're irritable and because you're tired and you're probably not eating right, you're like, who cares about your problems? Why are you talking to me about this?
Yeah.
I don't care. And then you're also a bad friend at that moment. Right. You know, like it's a lot. Like you're not your best self if you're at a deficit with your self-care. You're not. This is how you stay balanced. You know, and not just for a short temporary time, but this is how this becomes a lifestyle, with self-care being continuous. You know, this is how you ultimately become your healthiest, best self. So yeah, if you are not being intentional with your self-care, you're a worse everything. That's just the way I can put it. You're not a worse person, like you're a horrible person and you deserve to die or something. Because someone out there is going to be drastic.
I know.
But it's not that. You know what I mean? But it's like you're not your best self. Like you're not your best listening self. You're not your best receptive self. Your diet is probably not great, which is probably leading to you not sleeping well, which is also leading to you not being a great employee, which is probably making you snap at your wife or your girlfriend or your kids. So it's like you're just not at your best if that's at a deficit. So I would say absolutely it affects others. I think it makes you a borderline tyrant.
Nobody wants to be around you. I mean, we all relate if we're real with ourselves.
Yeah.
Wow, borderline tyrant. Okay, Pastor. The second question was, what are some signs that there is a self-care deficit?
So I thought this was interesting. There was a list that we were reading off the circle group, but everything they named on this list was kind of like that list of 10 things you could do for self-care without spending money. So let's put it like this. Getting dressed is limited. Hygiene is limited. Talking is limited. Mood swings are frequent. Things like bathing is hard. Simple hygiene like brushing your teeth is hard. Not being able to think clearly. Having a lack of desire to do anything that you like to do or that makes you happy. So all of these things, I thought to myself, like, wow, these are all very clear signs in our culture today of depression.
And we miss them because we just think we're overtired or,
Yeah.
I don't know, just don't feel like it. And I'm like, it's much more than that.
Yeah, it is much more than that. It's lack of you doing what you need to do to maintain that balance and that healthy lifestyle. So and this is why I say once you fall into that pit, like it's dangerous. Because if self-care is not something that you've been practicing and it's not a practice lifestyle, by the time you get to that deficit, like you're in a bad place. It's going to be hard to get yourself out of that. Hope, God willing, you have the community and the people around you that love you and don't judge and they're just willing to help. But it's a scary place to be at because we're talking about daily life things that you need to do. Right? Like daily basic life skills that you need to have, like hygiene, When that becomes limited, I think that's a huge red flag. There might as well be like a siren going off. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the third and last question, you touched on a bit of this earlier, basically when you were talking about fitting self-care into someone's schedule, but what do you think about that? Like about self-care being hard, almost impossible for some people in their minds to actually fit it into their schedule.
Self-care being hard to fit into your schedule. So what does this look like? Somebody saying to me, like, I just don't have time for that.
Yeah, I work all these hours, and then by the time I get home, I'm tired, and I got kids,
Oh, you hate yourself.
Oops.
That's the easiest way that I can say that.
So gross.
It's like you hate yourself.
Rude.
Yeah, because it's like I said it with the first question. Honestly, like I want somebody to hear my heart in this that probably has struggled with this stuff and took a long time to go to therapy and then did the hard work. Like it is safe to say for at least 15 years of my life, I hated myself because I just would not do what I needed to do to take care of myself. I would not. And as long as there were certain things lacking, I didn't realize that there was a whole bunch of other stuff that was severely lacking that shouldn't be lacking. So it literally, like, if I didn't have time for nothing except going to work and making money and doing what I wanted to do. That's all I had time for. So I hated myself.
Yeah, because we tend to what we care about. We leave alone what we hate.
Yeah, like that's all that mattered to me. Sleep barely mattered to me. I ate because I wanted to, but I didn't care necessarily about eating healthy. I just ate because I could and I wanted to. It's just nothing was intentional. Everything was, I guess the way you could say Solomon says it in Ecclesiastes, just vain.
Yeah.
Just futileness, empty. So self-care wasn't something that was important to me because I wasn't paying attention to myself. So I didn't know that I needed care.
Yeah.
Like I was too busy paying attention to everything else.
Yeah.
So, my mom, people around me would tell me things, but again, I'm paying attention to everything else. I'm not paying attention to myself. So I'm just like, I'm fine. I don't need therapy. That's for crazy white people. Not that it really is. That's ridiculous. But that's a stigma that you hear in the black community or the brown community that people say that, which is crazy because I know plenty of crazy black people, but I digress. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, I mean, that I know that that's kind of straightforward, but it's hard for me to think about that I went all of those years and I treated myself like I hated myself. So
Yeah, that feels ugly.
Very much so.
Yeah, but you know what? It's hard to be receptive to anything when you do hate yourself. Receptive to therapy, receptive to change, receptive to take, someone telling you like this is what I think you should do for yourself because I know you as a mother could say that, and I know you enjoy this and that, or a spouse. So, and then you're just like getting mad or offended or just shutting them down completely.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that spirit of offense, absolutely. And it matters who's saying this to you.
Yeah.
You know, if it's someone that loves you and you know they love you and they mean you well, then they mean you well. It's not the same thing as your enemy saying it or someone that doesn't really care about you at all. For years, my mother would say, I think you need to go talk to someone. And I was like, okay, crazy lady. And I just kind of left it at that, like, but it wasn't something I actually took serious, until I got into adulthood. And yeah.
You realize the effect of you not taking care of your self-care had on your life.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think I can lead a family like this. Holy Spirit, help. Like, it was kind of like that. Tell me what to do. Yeah, so I enjoyed this. I can't wait till the next part. I don't want to spoil what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be good.
It's coming.
And we in the month of May. So we doing mental health awareness all May. All May. So yeah, guys, go back and watch the first part of this, self-care. This is self-care in action. So this is technically part 2. So we're going to be moving a little bit on from self-care, but you'll still hear snippets of it throughout the other things that we talk about in the podcast. So stay tuned. Take care of yourselves. Yeah, and if you're taking anything because your doctor's telling you to take it, please listen to your doctor. Okay, listen to your doctor. Also listen to your pastor. But don't let anybody tell you that, hey, something's wrong with you. You're not praying right. You're not saved. None of that is true. None of that is true. Mental health and mental illnesses are real things that we're going to be talking about it all month. So stay tuned, guys. We love you. Peace.